Madonna walked into a small Italian restaurant in New York City, wearing jeans and no makeup. The waiter took one look at her and said the three words that would change his life forever: "We don't serve you." What happened in the next 10 minutes shocked everyone in that restaurant, made headlines around the world, and taught us all a lesson about judging people by their appearance. It was a Tuesday evening in October 2015, and Madonna was exhausted. She had just finished a brutal 12-hour recording session for her upcoming album, and all she wanted was a quiet meal somewhere nobody would recognize her. She'd deliberately chosen the smallest, most unremarkable Italian restaurant she could find in the West Village, a place called Bella Notte that seated maybe 40 people on a good night. She walked in wearing her oldest pair of jeans, ripped at the knees from actual wear rather than fashion. Her t-shirt was faded, her sneakers were scuffed, and she'd pulled her hair back in a messy ponytail. No jewelry, no designer bags, no entourage. Just a tired woman who wanted pasta and peace. The hostess stand was empty when she entered, so Madonna stood near the door, waiting. The restaurant was about half full, mostly couples enjoying quiet conversations over candlelight. The smell of garlic and fresh bread filled the air, and for a moment, Madonna felt herself relax for the first time all day. That's when Michael Rodriguez appeared from the kitchen. Michael was 28 years old and had been working at Bella Notte for exactly 6 days. He'd immigrated from the Dominican Republic 3 years earlier, working his way through various restaurant jobs while sending money back to his mother and younger sister in Santo Domingo. This position at Bella Notte was his first role as head waiter, and he was terrified of making a mistake. The restaurant's owner, Mr. Caruso, had been very clear during Michael's training. Bella Notte was moving upscale. They were trying to attract a wealthier clientele, which meant enforcing a strict dress code. No sneakers, no ripped jeans, no casual attire. Michael had been specifically told that his job depended on maintaining these standards. When Michael walked out of the kitchen and saw Madonna standing near the door, he didn't see the Queen of Pop. He saw a woman who violated every dress code policy Mr. Caruso had drilled into his head for the past week. "Excuse me, ma'am," Michael said, his voice stiff with the formality he'd been practicing. "I'm sorry, but we can't seat you this evening." Madonna looked up, confused. "I'm sorry?" "Our restaurant has a dress code," Michael continued, gesturing vaguely at her outfit. "We require proper attire. No ripped jeans, no sneakers." Madonna glanced down at herself, then back at Michael. "Are you serious?" "I'm very sorry, ma'am. Restaurant policy." Michael's heart was pounding. He hated this part of the job, but he couldn't afford to lose this position. His mother's medication wasn't going to pay for itself. Several nearby tables had stopped their conversations to watch what was happening. An older couple in the corner exchanged uncomfortable glances. A man in a business suit pulled out his phone, sensing something interesting might be about to unfold. Madonna stood very still for a moment, studying Michael's face. She could see the nervousness there, the way his hands clenched slightly at his sides. She'd been performing for 40 years. She knew how to read people, how to see past what they were saying to what they were feeling. "Can I speak to the manager?" Madonna asked quietly. Michael's stomach dropped. This was exactly what he'd been afraid of. "Yes, ma'am. One moment." He disappeared into the back, leaving Madonna standing near the door. The other diners were now openly watching, their meals forgotten. Someone at the bar whispered to their companion, and suddenly half the restaurant seemed to realize who was standing by the entrance. When Michael returned with Mr. Caruso, the manager's face went from annoyed to horrified in approximately 2 seconds. "Madonna," Mr. Caruso said, his voice strangled. We didn't." "Michael, what have you done?" Michael looked between his boss and the woman in ripped jeans, his mind struggling to process what was happening. This was Madonna, the Madonna, and he had just refused to serve her. "Mr. Caruso," Michael started, his voice barely a whisper. "I was just following the dress code policy you—" "Get out," Mr. Caruso hissed. "You're fired. Get your things and get out of my restaurant." The words hit Michael like a physical blow. Fired. On his 6th day. He felt his face go hot, his vision blur slightly. His mother's medication. His sister's school fees, the apartment deposit he'd finally saved enough for. "Wait," Madonna said. Everyone froze. "Don't fire him," Madonna continued, looking directly at Mr. Caruso. "He was following your rules, wasn't he?" Mr. Caruso opened his mouth, then closed it again. Yes, but you didn't think those rules would apply to me." Madonna's voice was gentle, but there was steel underneath. "You made a dress code to keep out people who don't look wealthy enough for your restaurant. He was just doing what you told him to do." The restaurant had gone completely silent. Even the kitchen sounds seemed to have stopped. Madonna turned to Michael. "What's your name?" "Michael," he managed. "Michael Rodriguez." "How long have you worked here, Michael?" 6 days. Madonna nodded slowly. She looked at Mr. Caruso. "So you hired someone, gave them strict instructions, and now you're going to fire them for following those instructions because it embarrassed you?" Mr. Caruso's face had turned an impressive shade of red. Several diners had their phones out now, recording. This was going to be all over social media within the hour, and everyone in the restaurant knew it. "I need to sit down," Madonna said. She looked at Michael. "Can you find me a table? Somewhere quiet?" Michael looked at Mr. Caruso, who nodded frantically. Yes, of course. Right this way." Michael led Madonna to a small table in the back corner, his hand shaking as he pulled out her chair. As she sat down, he started to walk away, but Madonna stopped him. "Michael, can you stay for a minute?" He stood frozen, terrified. I'm so sorry, Ms. Madonna. I didn't recognize you. I was just—" "You were doing your job," Madonna interrupted. "The job your boss told you to do." She paused, studying him. "Where are you from, Michael?" "Dominican Republic." He was so nervous he could barely get the words out. "How long have you been in New York?" 3 years. "Supporting family back home?" Michael nodded, not trusting his voice. Madonna was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that would change everything. "When I first came to New York in 1977, I had $35 in my pocket and a dream that everyone told me was impossible. I got turned away from restaurants, clubs, auditions. People looked at me and decided I wasn't good enough before I even opened my mouth." She leaned forward slightly. "You know what I learned, Michael? The people who judge you by your clothes, your accent, where you're from, they're not the people you need to impress. They're just scared. Scared that if they let people in who don't fit their idea of proper, they'll lose whatever tiny bit of status they think they have." Michael stood very still, listening. "You were scared tonight," Madonna continued. "Scared of losing this job, scared of disappointing your family. So you enforced a rule that you probably didn't even agree with, because that's what survival sometimes looks like. I get it. But here's what I want you to understand. Dignity isn't about what you wear. It's about how you treat people when they can't do anything for you." She pulled out her phone. "Do you have a phone?" Michael nodded, pulling out his battered smartphone with shaking hands. "Give me your number," Madonna said. What happened next became the stuff of legend. Madonna didn't just have dinner at Bella Notte that night. She sat with Michael for 2 hours, talking about his dreams, his family, his struggles in New York. She listened to his story, how he'd worked 3 jobs to pay for English classes, how he sent half his salary home, how he dreamed of opening his own restaurant someday where everyone would be welcome, regardless of how they dressed. When she finally left, Madonna didn't leave a generous tip. She left her phone number and a message. "When you're ready to open that restaurant, call me." The story hit social media within hours, but not in the way Mr. Caruso had feared. Madonna herself posted about it, but her message wasn't about being refused service. It was about a young man named Michael Rodriguez who was brave enough to enforce rules he didn't believe in because he was taking care of his family, and how that kind of courage deserved recognition, not punishment. Within 24 hours, Michael's phone was ringing off the hook. Restaurant owners wanted to hire him. Culinary schools offered him scholarships. A GoFundMe campaign started by someone who'd been in the restaurant that night raised over $200,000 for his dream restaurant. But the most important call came from Madonna herself, 3 days after that night. "I've been thinking about what you said," Madonna told him, "about wanting to create a place where everyone feels welcome. I want to invest in that. Not just money, I want to help you build it, the right way." Michael tried to speak, couldn't, tried again. "Why would you do this for me?" "Because 38 years ago, someone gave me a chance when they didn't have to," Madonna said. "Because you reminded me of who I was before the fame, before the money, before people stopped seeing me as a person. And because the world needs more restaurants run by people who understand what it feels like to be judged unfairly." 2 years later, Michael opened Rodriguez Family Kitchen in Brooklyn. The restaurant has no dress code. There are pictures on the wall of Michael's mother and sister, of his journey from Santo Domingo to New York, and in a place of honor above the bar, a framed note from Madonna that reads, "Dignity isn't about what you wear, it's about how you treat people." The restaurant became famous not just for its food, but for its policy. Every Sunday, Rodriguez Family Kitchen provides free meals to anyone who comes in hungry, no questions asked. Michael calls it the Madonna table, and there's always a reserved sign on it just in case she drops by. Madonna does drop by, usually unannounced, often wearing jeans and sneakers. She always sits at the Madonna table, and she always insists on paying full price, which Michael always refuses. It's become a running joke between them. Mr. Caruso's restaurant, Bella Notte, closed down 8 months after that October night. The dress code policy that had seemed so important turned out to be exactly what killed the business. People didn't want to eat somewhere that judged them before they even sat down. But this story isn't really about Mr. Caruso, or even about his failed restaurant. It's about what happened when two people, one famous, one struggling, met at a moment when everything could have gone wrong and chose compassion instead of conflict. Michael could have been bitter. He could have seen that night as a humiliation, a moment when his desperation made him enforce rules that hurt someone. Madonna could have been angry. She could have used her power to destroy Michael's reputation, to make an example of him, to punish him for treating her like she didn't matter. Instead, they both chose to see each other as human beings. Michael saw a woman who was tired and hungry. Madonna saw a young man who was scared and trying his best. And in that moment of recognition, something beautiful was born. The story went viral, but not in the celebrity drama way these things usually do. It went viral because it reminded people of something they'd forgotten, that the way we treat service workers, immigrants, people who are just trying to survive, that's who we really are. Not the face we show our friends, not the persona we craft for social media, but the real us that comes out when we think no one important is watching. Madonna had spent decades fighting against being judged by her appearance, against being reduced to whatever image the media wanted to pin on her at any given moment. She'd been called a provocateur, a rebel, a scandal. But on that October night in 2015, in a tiny Italian restaurant where a nervous young waiter refused her service, Madonna got to be something even more powerful. She got to be kind. And Michael learned something that changed his entire approach to life. That sometimes, the moments that feel like disasters are actually doorways to something better. That the worst night of your life can become the first chapter of a story you'll be proud to tell. Today, Rodriguez Family Kitchen is one of the most successful restaurants in Brooklyn, and Michael Rodriguez is considered one of the city's most promising young restaurateurs. He's been profiled in food magazines, featured on cooking shows, and awarded for his community service work. But if you ask him about his success, Michael always tells the same story. The story of the night he refused to serve Madonna, and how it taught him that rules matter less than people, that dignity can't be measured by dress codes, and that sometimes the most important thing you can do is see past what someone looks like to who they really are. There's a lesson in this story for all of us. We live in a world that constantly judges people by their appearance, their accent, their zip code, their Instagram followers. We create rules and standards and dress codes, and we convince ourselves that these things matter, that they separate the worthy from the unworthy. But here's the truth that Madonna and Michael discovered that night. Everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. The person in ripped jeans might be a global icon having the worst day of her life. The nervous waiter enforcing a stupid rule might be supporting his entire family on minimum wage and tips. And the moment you choose to see people as human beings rather than obstacles or opportunities, That's the moment everything changes. If this story moved you, if it reminded you to look twice at the people you might otherwise overlook, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more stories about the moments when celebrities showed us who they really are, and don't forget to leave a comment about a time when someone surprised you by looking past your appearance to see who you really are. Because at the end of the day, we're all just tired people looking for a place that will serve us with dignity. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, we find it in the most unexpected places.